Hello, friends, let's begin our afternoon class and continue from where we left off this morning. Our course discusses the era and Tian Dao, the heavenly way. This morning, we first explained what the way is. That which is metaphysical is called Tian Dao, the way, and that which is tangible, created by us to realize Tian Dao, is the instrument called Qi. Science is the study of Qi, the instruments for realizing Tian Dao. Natural science studies the material objects, and social science studies the spiritual objects, which are systems and institutions. Political science studies political systems, law studies legal systems, and economics studies economic systems. In summary, it's the study of objects, with one category being natural sciences and another being social sciences. Philosophy is the study of the way. We explained the relationship between the way and objects, stating that all human civilizations' creations stem from the human mind's understanding of the way. Because of an understanding of electricity, humans created electrical appliances. In the relationship between humans and nature, humans' understanding of the heavenly way led to the creation of material objects. Today, these material objects are primarily embodied through technology. We use technology to create an environment suitable for human life. Therefore, technology is a form of understanding of nature, and craftsmanship is another. The human understanding of another aspect of the heavenly way, which leads to understanding how relationships between people should be conducted, is called the establishment of social order. Therefore, the creation and invention of systems and regulations all come from the understanding of the way. Objects are tools for carrying out the way. When a civilization has a fundamental ailments, it is invariably described by these 9 words: seeing the object but losing sight of the way. When such an illness arises, there is only one solution: to discuss the way anew. Working at the level of objects can no longer solve the problem. We like to be pragmatic. There's a saying we often repeat: instead of sitting down to discuss the way, it's better to stand up and take action. We've been taking action for decades, and if we consider the start of the reform and opening up policies, it's been over 40 years. Today, we've finally had to sit down and discuss the way. What is the nature of our national revival in the 21st century? It's encapsulated in the 2 words, wealth and power. The achievement of national wealth and power is the great revival of our nation. This matter warrants further discussion. Some countries can never become powerful, like Singapore. How could it become powerful? It's a tiny place. Someone joked with me, saying they've never been to Singapore, but they heard that once a plane takes off, it's already out of the country. In Singapore, it's legally mandated that if an enemy invades, they must resist for 24 hours and then they can surrender. Why? Resistance is a must, it's the defense of the motherland. But it's certain to lose, right? Can it become powerful? Some countries may never join the ranks of the wealthy nations. They lack both the strength and the wealth, but that does not mean the people of these countries live without happiness. So, this is an issue we need to ponder. This morning we also discussed the second point, which is that the way of heaven is present in people's lives, and this idea is the union of heaven and man. This idea fundamentally distinguishes Chinese philosophy from Western philosophy and religion. While we Chinese people talk about Tao, the ancient Greeks also discussed the Tao. Through Plato, the ancient Greeks ended up discussing 2 worlds, a transcendent world of ideals and a real world of the senses. Truth resides in the world of ideals, reality is compared to the ideals and is always found lacking, and thus it needs to be reformed. This is the theory of idealism. When Chinese people discuss Tao, we don't end up with 2 worlds. We still have only one world, the sensible world of our lives. The way of heaven is within this world. So, this morning we used an example, where Zhu Shi talked about that the second guiding principle of the great learning is to be close to the people, right? But the character for close is incorrect, it should be renew. Wang Yongming refuted him, it's not renew, it is close. What is the implication in the one word that is being argued? It's arguing about the fundamental philosophical spirit of our nation. If renew the people means to reform and update the lives of the people, by what standard do you reform and update the lives of the people? The way of heaven is within the lives of the people, and if you seek to reform the lives of the people, it is tantamount to saying you want to reform the way of heaven. We Chinese have been continuously learning from the West in modern history, thus we also have the idea of transforming the world, first nature, then society, and we have done so. This is a compulsory requirement brought about by the principles of capital and technology. But there will be a time our civilization embarks on a new era, where is the foundation of social order in our relationship with the natural world and in our relationships with each other. In the future of human civilization, as I said this morning, capitalism will one day perish. And I don't know which day because we are not fortune tellers. Once the capitalist production relations end, it will be the end of its own doing, then Chinese thought becomes an inspiration to all humanity. We must rebuild the relationship between man and nature, and we must rethink what are the basic principles of the relationship between people, which doesn't come from ideals. The way of heaven is present in the lives of the people, we observe it, and then articulate it. The ones who speak of it are the sages, and we learn from the sages. If we learn well, we become virtuous. What does it mean to be virtuous? The virtuous will be qualified to teach. The virtuous will teach his or her student to be Junzi, a true gentleman. The first task of education is to allow our students, our next generation, to learn to be human, to be true gentlemen, and only secondarily to become a certain kind of person. Teachers must be virtuous for this task. So I always think, am I, Wang Defeng, qualified to be a virtuous person? The requirements for teachers are very high now. If I am not virtuous, how can I enable my students to become true gentlemen? After much thought, I am nearly there. I qualify because I have learned from the sages. The sage from the West is Marx, I have learned from him, this is my profession, Marxist philosophy. I am Chinese, naturally, I would also learn from China's sages. I have read their original works, and I have done so diligently and strenuously, starting from pre-Qin philosophy. I can almost accurately be their spokesperson. So I would say I am qualified to be a virtuous person and for that reason to be teacher. This is quite a high requirement. Our schools should not cultivate refined egoists. They are everywhere today, with high degrees. Refined egoists are more barbaric than barbarians, they don't need to break into your house to steal your money. They are gentle and elegant, with doctorates in finance, and they just cause your money to shrink significantly, which is very powerful. Those highly qualified finance experts. Finance is supposed to serve the real economy, and the real economy is the people's livelihood. The real economy is the skin, and the capital market is the fur. Without the skin, the fur cannot attach itself, a simple truth. We then move on to the third point, which concerns the third part of today's lecture, the division of eras. Why are there different eras? Because the Tian Dao is reflected in history, the unfolding of the Tian Dao is a progression of stages. In each stage, the Tian Dao is manifested as the destiny of that era. The West entered the era of capital and technology, which was also a stage of the European nation's destiny. Of course, they imposed their capital power on non-European nations, leading to an interconnected world. There was no universal history before this. Now at its core, capital seeks to conquer the world. Hence, we have no choice but to bear what was originally the European nation's destiny, which all Eastern countries did without exception. The fate of our Chinese nation has entered such an era where modernization is necessary. Without building a modernized country, we would be expelled from the global community. Mao Zedong deeply understood this, the suffering and humiliation of modern history, that backwardness invites aggression. How do you rise up? Industrialization is the first step. We talk about modernization every day, but what exactly is modernization? Have you ever thought about it? I believe there are three aspects. First, industrialization. Without it, there is no modernization. Second, a market economy. We once had a period of planned economy, which was inevitable for the primitive accumulation of capital required for China's modernization. This was the unavoidable reason for the era of planned economy. Hence, in 1979, we entered the era of reform and opening up. Reform was the first step, followed by opening up. The goal of reform was to transition from a planned economic system to a market economy system. This is the fundamental goal of reform, to build a market economy mechanism. Of course, the entire process was difficult and twisted, taking small steps over the 30 years since 1979. The first step was rural reform. What exactly was rural reform? The household responsibility system, which, when looking at the nature of production relations, was a regression to ancient individual agricultural operations. It revitalized farmers' production enthusiasm in the short term, but this was not sustainable. Eventually, farmers realized something: without industry or commerce, there is no wealth. Thus, urban reforms allowed for the growth of private enterprises. Private enterprises initially evolved from township and village enterprises, with the privatization of township enterprises manifesting in the formation of family businesses, especially in the Jiangsu and Zhejiang regions. It was a gradual process. State-owned enterprises remained largely unchanged, but township enterprises and family businesses started to thrive, leading to interesting exchanges between these two types of enterprises. What did township enterprises lack? Government policies, technology, and talent. Thus, the concept of Sunday engineers emerged, engineers who, while officially within the system, provided their expertise to township enterprises on Sundays, boosting their technology. Then, state-owned enterprises began to implement an internal contracting system, contracting different workshops to individuals, which led to asset outflows from state-owned enterprises. Looking at the whole economy from a macro perspective, on one hand, there were township and village enterprises, family businesses, including some foreign and joint ventures, which were subject to market-regulated prices. On the other hand, state-owned enterprises continued to exist with products priced by the government, set during the planned economy. This led to a dual-track pricing system. The significance of the dual-track system was huge because it introduced something called speculators. When I, Wang Defeng, was young in my 20s, if I had connections in the government, and I obtained government approval for 5,000 color TVs at official prices, which I then sold at market value, the profit margin was immense, leading to overnight wealth. This phenomenon was known as speculator activity. Thus, private capital initially formed and grew under the incubation of government power. As capital grew to a certain extent, what did it do? It sought to buy power, and power was willing to be bought. It was a difficult time, but this era was necessary and had its historical inevitability. What is the result of reform? The formation and development of the private economy are its most tangible outcomes. So, what is the result of opening up? Foreign capital and technology came in, allowing both our national and private capital to multiply rapidly and to integrate with advanced technology. This is the outcome of opening up. In order to attract foreign investment and advanced technology, we had to open up. Then, We grew into the world's largest factory. Manufacturing has risen because with a population of 1.4 billion, manufacturing is bound to be the foundation of our national economy. We cannot become a tourist country. Of course, some places can benefit from tourism, and they do have nice scenery, but can 1.4 billion people survive on the service industry and tourism alone? Impossible. Can they rely on the financial industry? How many people does the finance industry really employ? And what about technology development? How many people are employed there? Just like the United States, with a population of 300 million, do they all go to Silicon Valley to develop technology? Do they all become financiers on Wall Street? It's impossible. They still need to have manufacturing, but they have been moving manufacturing out of the country for a long time, right? In order to rebuild their employment space, they must bring manufacturing back to their country. This is what Trump was doing. So, how much more so for China? With a population of 1.4 billion, the common people's employment depends on two things: manufacturing and the service industry. Which is more fundamental between manufacturing and the service industry? Manufacturing. Because what is the premise of the service industry? It's people coming with money to spend. The problem is that they need to have money in their pockets in the first place, then they can consume, travel, dine out, stay in upscale hotels, or enjoy golf, but the premise is that the money has to be earned first. We are not the Maldives. We know of this small country, an island nation, the Maldives, which can survive solely on tourism. People from all over the world bring their money to consume there, to enjoy the seascapes, and to go scuba diving, right? It's all about consumption. So, can China survive on this? Impossible. If we could survive in the service industry, I would suggest having holidays every day of the year. No need for a golden holiday week, just have a golden holiday year. But then who would produce material things? Right, that's the issue. So manufacturing is fundamental, isn't it? I have not studied economics or finance, but what I say is an attempt at sound reasoning. Therefore, I cannot debate with the professors from Fudan University's School of Economics. They speak at length with great confidence, but I don't understand a word. After asking for explanation, I grasp what the issues are, and then they have nothing more to say. I told them that you are part of what is considered the most prominent discipline in modern social sciences, called economics, and a branch of it is finance, truly the most prominent. But you are confused by the subject itself. I do not mean to boast here, I am simply saying that Chinese thought, with its foundation in grounded principles, probably gives us a more sound rationality. China finally achieved tremendous success with the reform and opening up, but what were the main social contradictions of the entire first 30 years of reform and opening up? The issue of the era is very clear. In the initial 30 years from 1979 to 2009, what was the era's task? It was to get rid of poverty and move towards a moderately prosperous society. That was the issue of the times. So, what was the main social contradiction? It was between the officialdom structure and the market mechanism. The officialdom structure and the market mechanism are understandable to everyone. Capital formed under the incubation of power must grow within the market mechanism, but the officialdom system always exists, and this is called the main social contradiction. During Mao Zedong's era, the main social contradiction was expressed by Mao Zedong himself, the struggle between two paths, socialism or capitalism. Whether to achieve industrialization through the socialist path or the capitalist path was clear and precise. So, what was the main social contradiction during the 30 years from 1979 to 2009? It was between the officialdom structure and the market mechanism. If we want to develop a market economy, we must move towards a market mechanism, but at the same time, the officialdom system exists. The government's power has the attribute of distributing and guiding market resources, and this power lies within the bureaucratic system. Such a contradiction has made our 30 years of reform and opening up an extremely tortuous path, never smooth sailing. So, this main social contradiction exists, doesn't it? It does.